Here's a fact. Most Teams users have never touched App Studio, even though it can turn your workflow wish list into reality. Why are so many businesses missing out on this hidden superpower? Stay with me as I walk through how to create custom bots and tabs. No experience, no code, no nonsense. Why built-in Teams features hit a wall. If you've ever tried to automate something in Teams, maybe simple HR approvals or recurring project updates, you already know the story. You start confident, thinking Teams has got you covered because, after all, it's built for collaboration. But pretty soon you realize that Teams, as polished as it looks, keeps a lot of its doors locked unless you know exactly which keys to use. And sometimes those keys don't even exist. There's the built-in approvals app, but real-world processes never line up perfectly with the generic experience. Maybe you need to pull a value from three places, run a calculation, ask for an exception, or trigger an extra step based on the status. You figure, no problem, I'll just tweak that. But then you find yourself lost in Power Automate, fussing with connector limits and trigger conditions. And half the time, all you've managed to build is a clunky workaround instead of a true solution. Let's get specific. Picture you're running a small IT team that needs to manage software requests from 50 users. The built-in Teams chat is fine for the requests, but you need an actual workflow. Conditional approvals, auto-assigning requests, notifications to the right engineer, and maybe even a summary report at week's end. You open up Teams, poke around settings, check the built-in apps. Nothing is quite right. Even Power Automate, which promises to connect anything to everything, starts to feel like building a house with only duct tape and a pocket knife. There's always one notification that never seems to hit the right group, or a required step that falls through the cracks. Meanwhile, you waste hours customizing templates, hacking together flows, and still end up checking Teams every morning just to see what slipped through. Advanced users aren't immune either. Maybe you've tried to build richer, more granular notifications, or wanted to surface unique data views in tabs. Custom triggers, like responding to specific keywords or events in complex ways, out of reach, at least without learning JavaScript or going shopping for paid add-ons. The dream of automating routine work ends up feeling like almost there, but not quite. And honestly, most professionals do hit these walls. Recent surveys show over 60% of IT pros have given up on Teams projects because the built-in stack just wouldn't flex enough for their use case. Stories about manual workarounds pop up everywhere. A finance team I worked with tried to automate invoice approval notifications in Teams. The default flow just posted to a channel, but approvers worked in several subgroups, so of course, half of them missed the message. Their workaround: at the end of every week, an intern had to export data from Teams and send custom emails. Every automation step just added a new manual task somewhere else. Errors crept in, sometimes tasks were missed, and the whole thing turned the productivity hub into just another notification swamp. And this isn't rare. Microsoft markets Teams as the place to bring your conversations, files, and processes together. Yet, when you push into real business scenarios, you realize that the promise of an all-in-one collaboration space often comes with a patchwork reality. You want a notification bot that DMs each team lead after their ticket closes? Not possible with stock tools. You want a tailored tab showing your daily metrics from 3 systems. The best you can do is link out or pay for a third-party app, if one even exists. It's like buying a Swiss Army knife and finding out half the tools fold out backwards. So you keep searching. Forums are littered with the same questions. Can I automate personalized reminders in Teams? How do I send custom notifications from form submissions? Over and over, responses bounce between not supported and requires custom code. And let's be real, not every team has a developer, let alone budget, for a bespoke SaaS subscription. Instead, most of us get used to living with broken processes or handing extra work back to the people who were supposed to be helped in the first place. What gets overlooked, almost ironically, is that Teams actually comes with a tool designed to break these boundaries, one that almost no one talks about unless they've really dug around the App Store. The reality is App Studio exists, lives right inside Teams, and it happens to unlock custom bots, tabs, and extensions with little to no code required. It's not obvious, and Microsoft doesn't exactly push it front and center in their guides. That's probably why the majority of business users don't even know it exists, stuck thinking their only options are either to deal with rigid templates or start learning APIs in their spare time. If you've ever hit that wall trying to automate something Teams just can't handle out of the box, stick around. You're about to see where App Studio actually fits in and how it can give power users the toolkit they've been asking for. No developer resume required. App Studio, the secret door to custom bots. No coding degree required. If you think building a bot in Teams sounds like it requires a pile of documentation and a developer's patience, you're not alone. Most people see bot framework and immediately picture a maze of code, command lines, and APIs that only a full-time developer would love. And that's exactly why they skip right past something living quietly in plain sight, App Studio. The reality is App Studio has been sitting there in Teams for a while now, mostly ignored. It's tucked away like one of those extra tools on a Swiss Army knife you didn't know existed. Most users are so used to searching for outside solutions, they don't realize there's a tool built right into Teams meant for exactly this: low-code, business-friendly customization. In fact, when you first launch App Studio, it doesn't even look intimidating. For once, Microsoft put the basics up front. There's no cryptic command line, no compiler. You get a clean menu with options to start with bots, tabs, or extensions. And for each one, there's a guided walkthrough, almost like filling out a web form. Why is this such a big deal? Because despite developers sitting front and center on most Microsoft documentation, what App Studio offers is about as approachable as building a Power App or tweaking a SharePoint site. The main misconception is that bot development means you'll need Visual Studio open on one monitor and a stack of JavaScript tutorials on the other. Instead, App Studio breaks things down into steps that actually make sense to anyone familiar with Teams admin work. You want a bot? There's a designer for that. You need to set up a custom tab or a message extension. That's on its own page as well. No guesswork, no sifting through JSON files unless you really want to. Let's talk workflow. You start with the bot registration. Sounds technical, but it's almost just answering basic questions. App Studio walks you through display names, avatar setup, and basic configuration in cleanly labeled boxes. You don't have to write a single line of code just to get your bot stubbed out in Teams. Then you can use the designer to map out what you actually want your bot to do, respond to keywords, offer suggested replies, or surface information from another service. Every step is a matter of selecting options and picking what your trigger phrases will be. If you set up a Power Automate flow in the past, this will look immediately familiar, maybe even simpler. For anyone worried about structure or validation, App Studio actually handles all of the bot schema work for you. Every required field is clearly marked, and if something doesn't add up, you'll see an error flag before you try to publish. It's a little like having spell check for business apps. You won't get lost halfway through and discover you missed some obscure required property at deployment time. Let's bring in a real-life example. Say you manage a help desk and want a bot that sorts requests by topic, the user types, printer issues, new software, or password reset, and you want those routed to the right person with a quick Teams ping. In App Studio, you'd build this out by entering those keywords, setting up routing logic with selection menus, and then mapping who gets notified, all from the graphical interface. No rejects, no SDK install, just easy menu choices. In 15 minutes, you've got a working internal tool that would have taken hours if you went the traditional code route. Another bonus here is instant feedback. App Studio includes a built-in preview, so you don't have to publish just to see what the change looks like. You can test your bot in a sandbox before anyone else even knows it exists. And if something doesn't look right, tweaks are quick. Change a response, adjust a field, hit preview again. You aren't waiting for a full deployment cycle just to fix a typo or swap two options. A huge sticking point for most Teams admins is security, and with good reason. Bots and apps can touch a lot of data if you're not careful. App Studio doesn't let you ignore this. It runs you through permission screens, explains what access is being requested, and nudges you to authenticate through OAuth where needed. So you're not playing guessing games with authentication URLs or missing a vital permission. It's guardrails, but ones you actually want. The most surprising thing for many is how quick this goes from idea to actual usable prototype. You don't get bogged down in permissions pop-ups or endless manifest editing. Templates and previews move you along, and App Studio's validations help make sure you're not opening up a security hole or building a bot that falls flat at go live. At the end of the day, what you get is a proper toolkit for business automation in Teams without needing to dust off a programming textbook or submit a help desk ticket to IT. Power users can finally build something tailored, a bot, custom tab, or message extension that fits their process without jumping through the usual hoops or waiting months for a proper developer-built app. But maybe the most important piece here is this. App Studio is where you take back control, those routine requests that keep falling through the cracks. that monthly report nobody wants to chase. You can use App Studio to build the automation you pictured and see it running in Teams today, all through a UI that feels more like building a smart form than coding a new app. So if you're thinking all this sounds promising, but maybe still a bit hands-off, let's not just talk theory. Next, we'll walk through what building and deploying your own Teams bot actually looks like, one step at a time. From idea to action, building and deploying your first Teams bot. If you ask most Teams admins how long it takes to build a custom bot, you'll hear everything from "I wouldn't even start" to "that's a 2-week project minimum." But here's where App Studio throws out the old playbook. Instead of going down the rabbit hole with SDKs or wrangling Python scripts, you're looking at a process that can deliver a working bot in less time than it takes to finish the weekly deployment report. You don't have to clear your calendar or block off afternoons. Many people prototype a usable Teams bot in an hour, coffee included. Let's run through the steps because it's genuinely more practical than it looks at first glance. Once you've opened App Studio, you kick things off by creating a new app project. The interface is sculpted around forms and drop-downs, the same vibe you get with a Power App or even a SharePoint list. Titles, descriptions, and icon uploads, nothing more intimidating than choosing an avatar. For bot registration, you'll walk through picking a name, setting up its handle, deciding where it'll show up in Teams, and assigning a basic function. The bot creation wizard leads with straightforward prompts. Do you want your bot in chats, channels, or both? Should it respond in one-on-one conversations or be available to everyone? Fill a few required fields. No code, no special syntax, no wading through manifest files manually. Now, the elephant in the room, actually building the bot's logic. This is where people get nervous. But at this stage, you're dropped into a designer that acts almost like building a simple Power App. Instead of sewing together formulas or custom code, you pick triggers. These can be keywords or even certain user actions. The bot's responses can be crafted as static text or tied to actions, like sending a card or collecting input. Imagine you want a daily check-in bot for your team. You tell App Studio, ask each user at 9 a.m. if they're ready for the day. You map out the flow visually, lining up the bot's prompt, capturing a reply, and saving that data to a connected list or spreadsheet. If you can build a survey in Forms or a logic app, you'll find these steps comfortingly familiar. One thing that still trips up even seasoned admins is authentication. Teams bots often need to access resources, schedules, user profiles, or project databases. With App Studio, you're not left staring at ambiguous authentication errors. There's a dedicated OAuth setup right inside the process. The tool walks you through what permissions your bot needs and helps you register those requirements. Instead of a blank API screen, you're reading plain English, grant access to user profile, or read calendar events. App Studio even lets you preview these permission prompts so you can see exactly what your users will experience, avoiding unpleasant surprises during rollout. Security matters, especially when bots interact with sensitive business data or send messages to large groups. App Studio addresses this head-on by integrating permission management with Teams policies. You can restrict bot access to certain security groups or set it up so only specified users can trigger bot actions. This puts actual guardrails in place, so you're not accidentally rolling out a bot that pings the entire department with every ticket update. Teams admins can use the standard Teams policy engine to add or remove access, bringing the new bot into your existing governance framework. Here's a real example. Stripped back to the basics. A healthcare team needed a better way to track daily shift approvals. Instead of sending emails back and forth, which never worked, one admin built a check-in bot through App Studio. It prompted nurses at shift start, logged their response to a SharePoint list, and triggered an alert if a supervisor's approval wasn't received by end of day. The best part, they ran it with just a pilot group the first week, checked for issues, then rolled it out to everyone after. No service desk tickets, no outages, and the team went from zero automation to full tracking inside the same Teams environment they'd been using for months. Visualize the whole thing like making a PowerPoint slide. It's more about arranging pieces than wrestling with code. Drag elements into place, preview, revise, and publish when ready. The risk of breaking something critical just isn't there. App Studio keeps new bots isolated during development and lets you push changes only when satisfied. But don't miss this. Getting a bot up and running is only the start. You need to think about what happens after go live. Smooth deployment is great, but maintenance and real-world quirks pop up fast. Before we tackle that, let's be clear. If you follow the built-in guidance in App Studio, building and deploying your first Teams bot can genuinely be easier, faster, and a lot safer than most expect. No weekend lost, no security incidents, and no endless troubleshooting threads. Of course, once your bot is live, that opens up a brand new set of questions and opportunities. Keeping your automation running smoothly, that's the next chapter. And keeping bots alive, maintenance, pitfalls, and real world wins. Your bot's live and people seem excited. But if you think the work stops after that first announcement post, you haven't seen the real test yet. Most Teams bots and apps don't fail on day one. They fade away quietly after that first month when a Teams update breaks an integration or a required permission disappears without warning. I've heard more than a few admins recalling the same story. It launched perfectly, then suddenly stopped responding. We didn't even notice until HR filled my inbox about missed check-ins. It's not always the bot's fault, but it's almost always a sign that maintenance was treated like an afterthought. Let's talk about what keeping a Teams bot healthy actually looks like. First, you're not managing a static plug-and-play tool. Bots run in a living, changing environment. Teams itself updates, users get new permissions, and backend services move around. You need eyes on basics like operational logs, notification flow, and version tracking from the very start. Without some sort of basic monitoring, small issues snowball. Maybe you set up a notification bot that pings every manager when their approval is needed. If one recipient isn't getting the ping, it's probably not Teams being quirky. 9 out of 10 times, a hidden permission changed or your bot lost connection to an external service. You're stuck troubleshooting only after someone's annoyed. The horror stories come up at every user group. There's always someone who had a Teams app disappear after a permissions update rolled out. Or the bot upgrade that looked simple enough until a schema change caused requests to go nowhere. Some of these are one-off glitches, but most boil down to skipped steps. No process for version control, no centralized log, or just forgetting to revisit app manifests after a policy change. Once a well-meaning admin launched a survey bot for employee wellness. It ran fine for weeks until one Friday when responses stopped flowing. Nobody noticed that a minor change in Teams channel structure wiped out the bot's messaging permission. The fix wasn't hard, but it took half a week of head scratching to spot the missing link. If you want your bot to survive beyond the shiny first week, there are a few details you should never skip. Start with decent logging. Even a lightweight log, date, trigger, response outcome, covers about 80% of troubleshooting use cases. When a user claims they never got a notification, a quick check should show whether the bot sent it, whether Teams delivered it, or if the process stalled somewhere else. Notification settings often need reviewing after every Teams policy update. Microsoft loves a security prompt, and any change to data access or external integrations can break things silently. Version control matters here, even if you're not writing code. Each time you tweak your bot's behavior or permissions, treat it as a new version. Even a spreadsheet log helps when you need to backtrack. The same goes for integrating with outside services. Webhooks, SharePoint, Power Platform flows, even a simple form survey, they all come with expiration dates or changes in authentication. A quarterly review of those integrations can save you from the inevitable "why did the bot just start throwing errors" panic right before a big meeting. A short checklist helps keep things on track. Review bot and Teams logs weekly. Audit app permissions monthly, especially after user or policy changes. Test each supported trigger and notification path regularly. Solicit user feedback and track feature requests or complaints. And finally, maintain a copy of your current app manifest and configuration files somewhere other than your brain. You do not want to reconstruct your permissions flow from memory after a failed manifest redeployment. Now let's look at what happens when teams do this well. I've worked with a project management group that launched a project update bot through App Studio. The difference was every feature request from the field went on a running backlog. After launch, they scheduled a monthly feedback session, prioritized improvements, and rebuilt the bot's manifest twice in 3 months, each time growing user adoption and bringing in new integrations. The result wasn't flashier code, but a clear increase in productivity, less checking status manually, fewer missed handoffs, and a jump in positive user feedback. By rounding out their process with regular upkeep and a willingness to adapt, the bot turned from an experiment into something the team expected to use daily. But it's not just about keeping the bot alive, it's about the value you get when things just work. When your solution handles check-ins, reminders, or workflow escalations without needing daily rescue missions, you start to see the real return. Hours saved each week, less mental traffic for your team, a smoother experience for the users who interact with these systems every day. You don't just avoid complaints, you set yourself up as the person who delivers real business value. So here's the trade offs: skip the maintenance, and you're back to manual workarounds and extra admin time. Commit to a little routine care, logging, feedback, version checks, and your team's bot can deliver real return month after month, not just for one flashy rollout. It's how you move from a nice to have Teams add in to an actual asset people depend on. And that's where things start getting interesting for your career in this space. This brings up the obvious next question: what does being that go to Teams power user really mean? If you're the person who figures out automation in Teams, that's more than solving a technical puzzle. You're saving your team hours, fixing the stuff that grinds everyone down, and pushing Teams past its limits. People remember when the approvals get faster or the nagging reminders suddenly handle themselves, especially when it happens without a parade of emails or another SaaS purchase. App Studio quietly shifts you from power user to problem solver. If you're ready to quit waiting for maybe someday features, start building bots and see what opens up.